Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Coming up on The Payoff, a celebration of Big Bro Kevin Sousa's life. From 1970 to present day and all in between, it's been a very rough stretch for a lot of people, and I think this is one way to soften the blow, at least for the next 90 minutes. It's a very cool conversation with me and my brother Mike, and again, it is a celebration of the legend that was and forever will be and is our big brother, Kevin Sousa. Have you felt it at all in the days past? Like, I definitely have felt like a presence with me, for sure. At times, today was the first day, by the way. Or yesterday was the first day where something happened, and I would have called Kevin right away.
So you're saying you felt his presence being missed, or you felt him with you?
Well, I feel him with me from time to time. I definitely do. Like, I think about him and I see it. Usually it's when I'm outdoors. But then yesterday was the first time something happened to me where I was like, I would call him right away to get his take on this. Like right away. I need to hear what he'd have to say.
Yeah, I had a situation similarly 2 days ago when we were dealing with our wonderful and beloved mother and one of her takes on something that was...
She's not Stephen A. Smith, Mike.
What?
One of her takes.
Well, I'm trying to,
Yeah.
I don't one of her insane thoughts that we were processing, and it was hilarious that she was being funny, ridiculous, really. But I would have immediately called him and be like, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, you should hear our mother. That would have been like, and he'd have been like, and he'd have loved it. It's like, he loved hearing that stuff because it wasn't him.
And he also grew to a place, and we'll go backwards in a second here. He grew to a place where he almost was like, all right, what's she going to do next? Like, he kind of had like an adjustment to it where he wasn't necessarily so caught up in what was happening, but he was a spectator of what was happening rather than being caught up in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and like you said, we'll go backwards. The last year, and specifically the last 6 months, he got to a spot that it's not one of those things where you look back and go, well, now that he's passed away, well, you could feel it as we were going through it. Like, we commented to each other about like, God, look at the way, I can't believe he's handling this situation like that. Or he's interacting with this person. And like, God, he's just letting it play out. And I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
We said that a couple times, I'm sure.
Our good friend Nate Moore said over the weekend that he got the greatest hits version of Kevin Sousa. Because he's heard a lot of us talk about our lifetime experiences with Kevin in the body of work. And he's nobody's ever a finished product, but Kev really was, throwing 100 miles an hour. And in all facets of life, which is why it is such a tragedy, and why a lot of us feel like, this was taken from us. If we have I don't know if we have a human perspective, really. I mean, you have to really work to get in the right perspective, right?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing, like, the emotions are just up and down, like sadness. I mean, I have been angry several times, but I talk about it with people, like, like really angry, and just overwhelmed with sadness. But one of the things I'm sure we'll talk about is that I don't, nor did he, and I know because of talking with you, have any regrets with the way our relationships ended, and the piece of that is just huge. But yeah, I mean, I've been angry, I've been sad, I've been like baffled. It's been all over the place. It's been a really, really difficult time, but at the same time, there's been a lot of beauty in it, that we've been able to recognize, and a lot, God, do we still laugh about stuff like a bunch of idiots? It's like sad almost.
So at the start, Mike, you were born in 1972. In July.
Yes. Was this like a test? 73.
So Kevin was
the first time I was on the podcast. And by the way, thanks for having me back. It must be like sweeps or something. We started out with math, so this is great.
That's right. So
that's right.
Yeah, and you are, by the way, how many years sober are you?
16 and a little 16 and a half.
Okay.
Really.
So if you're just tuning into this podcast and you listen to it because of a message of recovery, my three brothers and I, I've talked about my two brothers and I, we're all sober. Kevin has just passed away. Cancer literally just ravaged his brain about 2.5 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. He hasn't even been 2 weeks yet since he passed. And Mike and I are here to celebrate the guy he was, the guy he will always be, the legacy he left. But nobody knows those early years better, Mike, than you, because Mom is delusional and Dad is dead. So
I get to rewrite history now, don't I?
By the way, do you want to do the mom disclaimer?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's important. Mom, if you are tuning in, and we are sure that you are, we love you so very much. We could not have asked for a better mom, and this is all truthful.
That's very true.
It is. I mean, just warm, wonderful, and loving, and to see you recover from this stroke with such vigor has been amazing. There will be some things here, as in my first podcast, that may be revealed that may, make you upset. But there's no intent, and you're loved to the moon and back.
Well, do you remember the way it played out? Michael was my second or third podcast guest, and guess who called? We do the podcast. We put the podcast up here at Rogue Media Network, and the first person that calls Mike and I is Kevin, because Mom had just called him and was talking about all the things that we talked about on this podcast. And really that got in the way. Kevin was like, "Hey, I'm not going to do this until a little later down the line because I don't want to get in that hornet's nest with Mom."
Have been on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're all over the place, but you know, it's your show. Rein us in if you need to. Like the journey it really came to a beautiful place. That was a couple of years ago, and there were some ups and downs, and he's like, I don't know if this is good timing for me to be a guest on the pod, because Mom's feedback was aggressive.
It was aggressive, yes. So I want to go back to the early stages of his life. You guys grew up in Connecticut, and then you moved to Washington, D.C. Do you remember anything about Kevin before you guys moved to Washington, D.C. when you guys were little kids growing up in Connecticut, where Dad's from?
No, I mean, the Connecticut, no. I remember D.C., like Virginia, where we lived. We just, like, there was a park down the street we would go hang out at. I mean, I was 3, he was 5. So, he was I think he just started smoking, and it was like the park, he knew where to go to hang out. But like he was, we were just hanging out a lot because, but when we got to PA, it was, what my earliest memories of him were like of a really caring brother, like just, he was 2 years older than me. And he was a really, like, when we were young, great big brother. I mean, we didn't fight that much. I mean, you were born, I think, we fought a lot, but, in a positive way. I don't know. It made us closer, but no, you were the youngest, and Kevin and I had a really good relationship. And what were you, because what are your earliest memories of him? Because
I don't have many. I mean, I don't have many early on. I mean, because really, and this is my next question to you. I mean, he was 7 years older than me, which is a huge chunk of time in life. And then when you get down to the early stages of life, first grade to 7th grade is like, I mean, I remember when he won the championship in 8th grade at St. Thomas Cook Council, they might as well have won the Super Bowl. I mean,
I felt the same way.
As far as I was concerned, but that was back. I think there was a time in grade school and elementary where Kevin really was that like kinder soul that you mentioned, just like authentic Kev out of the womb. And then circumstances and stuff happened around us, like any family, right?
Yeah. I mean, he was very sweet, like very loving. And, I think as the friction between him and dad grew as the oldest, look, it's like anything, like your first time trying something, it's going to be a bit of a shit show, and you're the oldest child. You're getting the test, the parents figuring their way out. So the oldest is typically, in my opinion, going to have it the roughest if you have parents who are still figuring themselves out. Right. So he definitely had, some friction with dad. And I think that brought an edge to him as we got to high school. Cause really, I remember him like grade school, St. Thomas, that ridiculous zipper cut down the middle of his head, but like always looking out for me, and even in high school, but in high school, he started to develop that edge,
Yeah. How did, I was going to say, do you have a first experience when you were like, Jesus Christ, like this guy's got balls. Like he's changed a little bit.
With dad or with
dad.
I mean, yeah, there was a little, Donnybrook in the kitchen one time, that got physical.
Which to us, right, was like, it was like Godzilla and King Kong had decided to fight in our kitchen. It was amazing.
It was like it was chaos.
Kevin wanted to go out, I think, as I remember, and take the car. Dad was like, "You're not going anywhere." This is loosely based on on reality, but this is what I remember. And then they got into a fight in the kitchen as Kevin tried to literally go out when Dad said, "You can't go out."
Like, "You're not leaving."
Yeah.
And little table got knocked over. There
was a dent in the wall.
Yes.
It was before the kitchen got redone.
I remember Mom swept you in her arms, sobbing up to the room because you were so scared.
I mean, that's probably true. Most of the stuff you say is BS. That's probably true.
I get to invent that.
No, that's probably true. But so that's kind of stuff that was defining him, I think, that started to define him, at least to me, that I was like, wow, this guy is really cool. He's got huge balls. And I looked at him as like a courageous individual, because as good as Dad was to me, Kevin fighting in the face of authority, I felt like he was a man of the people. He was fighting for us in a way.
Yeah,
I really did. I mean, I'm being silly, but I wasn't so opposed to him being anti-establishment when it came to the family.
He stood up to Dad and for himself, and I didn't have the balls or confidence to do that almost ever until my 30s, right? So I mean, like, he did it whether it was out of necessity or it was just inherent. Like he did it, and I dealt from a place of fear for most of my life until I got sober and started working on myself. Fight or flight, he was fighting.
Yeah, and he was fighting. I always talk about, like, I never developed like that skill set to like talk to girls or to like I would usually.
He had it.
But he did have it. He naturally had it, and he did develop a certain set of skills that I never ever even developed. And you can say because of alcoholism or whatever, but Kevin, like, he went through a lot of the super awkward stuff that turned him into a young man who was willing to face some controversy, go out on his own, and take his licks.
This is why Kevin was so special to us, because you and I, 4 years apart or 5, are very similar with our humor, our outlook on life, the fears we had growing up, how we masked them, and the courage we got from drugs and alcohol. And Kevin was not that. He is a deep, deep thinker. He is very intelligent. Not that we're not, but in a different way, maybe. Like, he's very cerebral. And he could talk to like anybody. And he had that courage of like talking to women, and he was the oldest, and he paved a way for us.
When was your first experience? You go to high school with him. And he kind of becomes like a bit of a rock star in his own right.
Let me just say that like the rock star part started like in the morning. He got his license and he drove. I think it was myself, Neil Cross, and maybe Joe Watch to school every day, and it was a mix of the Police, the Who, or Howard Stern, and that dude was driving. I mean, if you find Neil Cross and ask him, it was scary. Like he didn't give a shit about like. I mean, he was taking curves at like. He's that guy, like 55 on the way to school. Like we get out of there, like it was frightening, but that was every day. Like,
one time I told him he was driving me in like Frank Foley or somebody. And I was like, hey, like you were driving kind of fast. And he was like, and he waited till Frank got out of the car. He's like, don't ever tell me how to drive. I was so scared. I was like, all right. He took me, he had to, remember he used to umpire Little League games?
Oh my God.
He was like, he was like stuck with me. He's like, you sit in the car. I got to ump this game. And so I watched him ump this game. I mean, you've never seen a bad umpire with more bravado, right? And he was probably great, but he was like, Steer, like sitting guys down. He's got like a Who t-shirt on and like, he's just not ready at all. Yeah.
Dude, and that's the thing that like we saw him as this, and I'm not going to say a bully. Like he wasn't to
No.
us, but as an older brother, he was an older brother. So like to us, he was the guy who, as he thoughtfully, as he got older, communicated with other people. He would still talk to us like, dude, you're a moron. What's wrong with you? Like, not a lot of people saw that because of our dynamic.
Which ultimately became like a love language. Which there was a point in time where I couldn't stand it. And then really, over the past like 10 years or so, we talked about it, you really couldn't get enough of it because that was like, you felt like, I know I was, and so were you. We were in a specific, we were inside. And that was like, that was a very special thing.
Yeah. But when in high school, he started playing the guitar and he was in that band Final Cut. And man, he played a couple of like a soft hop. I was a sophomore. He was a senior. Soft hop. And then he was in the play Leader of the Pack. And man, like it was like my sophomore year when he became a star. Like, and I did not begrudge that. Like I still, as I think about it now, I get goosebumps. Like I remember looking at him like, holy shit, I want to be him. Like he was up there. Like,
Me too.
He's playing like in front of 50 people, right? But
dude, like, honestly, I swear it was more than that. The whole Carroll Auditorium was full every night, right? And word had spread. I mean, but word had spread that this was a terrific play. And I think it was a couple weekends, like back-to-back weekends. And he was amazing. And Jimmy Bell and I were just talking about it. He said he remembers the St. Thomas Good Counsel, his class, like they all went. And Jimmy was like, Jimmy grew up with Kevin in the neighborhood. Kevin was older. Jimmy was like, I know that guy. It was one of those moments for all of us. And it took, I got to imagine too, and that, Kevin was a football player. Most of his friends were football players. So that's a huge, you're definitely stepping outside of the box in the comfort zone, kind of being like, I'm going to do this. I don't give a shit.
Which is like a throwaway almost until you really think about the dynamics of high school. Like he was like, I'm doing this. And 6 or 7 of the football team came out and they played parts in the chorus. I remember, because of that. And dude, the guy was like,
were you didn't do it, did you?
No, they wouldn't let. I mean, you would have loved that, right? Dude, get away from me.
He felt, and I think there were sparks flew and there was a romance with the girl that was the lead. Is that true?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it was a scandal. And look, like Kevin's life, up until the last 15 years, it is famedom and scandal.
So what happened? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. So he had this awesome girlfriend who I won't mention by name. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what
we'll say Lynn K.
What kind of lawyers we have here media. Yeah. Lynn K. And they were like 2 years and she was awesome. Family dinners.
Always over. Yes.
Yeah. And him, like just like any Hollywood story, him and his leading lady start hooking up. I mean, like, and then they were having a affair. I don't
torrid
know.
affair, Mike.
I get. Can you have an affair then? I don't know. And then next thing you know, LK is no more, and he's dating this girl, and it was over.
That was that was like literally a blip right on the radar.
A blip, yeah. But it was Kevin, right? And that's like that really, because although we've heard his story, I don't know that he shared it really publicly at all, but drinking and drugs, he started drinking probably senior year in high school, and that's the beginning of really where he became the rock star in the Scandal. That was his life.
What about some of the parties he had at mom and dad's house? That was, that was pretty. Again, I would be upstairs, and he would just stay up there, and he would have a ton of people come over.
Yeah, look, we had
mom and dad would be at the Big East tournament.
Yeah, mom and dad would be like Galifty's 5 minutes away, and there'd be something going on at the house. But yeah, they were awesome. I mean, his friends were great. It was like, just huge parties. I do remember that you being 7 years younger, you had some of your first drinks and some chewing tobacco, I believe.
And I threw up
everywhere.
Yeah, he was pissed the next morning.
Of course he was. You ruined his party. Little moron.
He was pissed. And that's the thing. Like, it was always, I was, it's like the same as today. Your perspective's off. I should have been so happy just to be a part of that. But I always wanted to be like the inner part of it. But I mean, the fact that I was even just around that, amazing childhood memories.
And the ones with him and those guys from the neighborhood, when we got the dunk hoops, like, we played every day. Like, he was outside with us every day. I mean, look, we had it was a great, like, youthful experience. It was amazing. And he was a great big brother. And then in high school, man.
What tell the story. You were talking, go ahead. You were talking about when he was, when he played a dance of yours, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he mentioned my name for helping him like set up. And I felt like the biggest thing in the world. Like, and he did do that shit. Like, he looked out for us, he goes to Villanova. And so there was definitely a shift in Kevin after, and it's funny because thinking about his wonderful life, like, there was a shift after his sophomore year, right? So his freshman and sophomore year at Villanova. Yeah, Villanova, which, he paved the way for us, man. Like, he was at Villanova, and he was still that same high school guy. We were family dinners, like, you remember all the guys from the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity were always.
I remember us having that whole fraternity over, at least the whole freshman class over to our house. All the
time. Remember, Czech, Shalva Chakotay was there, like, all the time, and it was awesome. And I think that's when his drugs and alcohol really took off, and I could see it because after his sophomore year, he moved to Manayunk, and this is, if I may tell a quick tale, this is when he became known to us as Shady Chuck. But and for those listeners of this podcast, Happy Days, one of the great shows growing up, even before our era, but you've watched the reruns. In season 1, there was an older brother. There was Joni, Peter, Richie, who else? And there was, not the Fonz, there was Chuck. Chuck was the older brother, season 1. He wouldn't say anything. He'd come down, dribble the ball. Yep. And season 2, gone. Never mentioned Chuck Cunningham again. And that was Kevin. Like, in season 1, he'd show up, he was gone, show up, he was gone, and then he was just gone. And we literally nicknamed him Shady Chuck.
Shady Chuck. Like,
Shady
Chuck. He was I'd heard more about him. No, really. I mean, at that point, it was almost like stuff of like myth. You would hear about him from other people, and then Mom was really, like, you talk about paving the way. She laid it out for us at Villanova. They did everything. Our parents did everything for us to be quote unquote safe. You can't really protect your kids from who you are, right? And our parents were people that were growing up and finding their way as parents, but they did everything they could. Man, we had carte blanche at Villanova. Kevin was a freshman there, and you can speak more of this to more of this, but there was like an encroachment almost on you guys and your social lives because of who Mom was, and because of, you know, guys and girls found relationships with Mom, people that worked at the Conley Center, Villanova Student Union building, and then they would report back to Mom about stuff that Kevin was doing.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing, like Kevin was, you know, like once he got a little taste of freedom, right? He was still the first, again, couple of years, the Kevin guy, but you know, he would just like, he just was on his own path and he would do whatever. I was more of a conformist, right? I worked at the Connolly Center where Mom was. I hung out with all those people there.
Yeah.
Like I went on trips with them. They're great people, but they were not Kevin's cup of tea, right?
Yeah.
Kevin was cutting edge, rock star. This is like the birth of the rock star. Yeah, and Mom would hear stuff, and I think she would deny it or not deal or whatever. But you know, the weed, the booze, and the cocaine junior year, like it was on.
Yeah,
you know, like it was on.
Yeah, and he was in one of the best bands in the area, let alone at Villanova, Rugby Road, and he was unceremoniously ejected from that band.
He was unceremoniously ejected.
But I will say that was another thing that was like, you know, so here's our brother going through this struggle. He's not asking anybody for help because that's not what we do. If you're a Sousa, I really believe about it, and Kevin is a great example. We were predisposed to this thing. It's literally a matter of time before like you're going to do something about it or it's going to kill you. And you were the first person to do something about it. He had taken a couple cracks at it, but then he did it after you. But when he's discovering this part of who he is, you know, we're watching it and it was really playing out. I mean, you do say that the Chuck thing, he wasn't there, but I can remember he was, you know, they didn't want him in Rugby Road anymore because he was just partying too much. Bottom line, everybody loved him, but he was partying too much. And I remember he was home at Mom and Dad's house. I remember that was like a whole drama played out. And that's got to be hard for a kid. Like I went through all my stuff like far away from home, or at least far enough away. But like the Richmond football team wasn't walking into Mom and Dad's house and saying like, "Hey, we had to throw Pete out of this group because, you know, like." But it happened to me. But it happened for Kevin really close to home.
Yeah, it was very much up close and personal. And I think, you know, like, you know, the information wasn't out there as much. I think parents at that point were more inclined to like believe what they wanted to, right? Like, I mean, look, I think it's a wonderful thing and a terrible thing. Like drugs and alcohol are talked about more, but they're also more prevalent, right? So, but as you know, people weren't educating their kids and you know, Mom and Dad, you know, they knew there was things there, but they kind of turned their head, let's say, like, and I don't blame them for that. And, you know, it started getting worse and worse. He got thrown out of the best band, you know, and look, the whole time he would take me to these shows. Like I would go there as a sophomore, you know, he's a senior and I go to Barleycorns with him, right? Like, you know, he was like, I got to ride his coattails. But I also saw that he was getting out of control. And, you know, the idol I had on the pedestal definitely started to fall for me. Now, this is not his fault. I was starting my own path of addiction. And, you know, look, I was probably a mirror of myself in a lot of ways, right? So I started over the next, 20 years, you know, to have our relationship not be like that, you know, where I idolized him and he could do no wrong. I started not to like him as a person, probably because I didn't like myself as a person, but I still loved him as a brother. Like we still loved each other. We still talked, but I really thought, you know, like, you know, he's out of control and I'm better than him, which was not the truth at all. Right. Like we were going down our own path, but
we had the classic brothers relationship in a sense that like, you know, even there were point in times when we all weren't getting along with, there was like a real strong bond and love. And like, you know, Kevin or you wouldn't let anything happen to me, like outside of, you know, like that's my little brother.
Yeah. It's like, look, you know,
I felt protected around Kevin. I felt protected around you.
Me too. Like he might be an but he's ours.
Yeah. 100%.
Like, you don't cross that line. Like, without a question, like we were tight. I mean, you know, there was a large fight at Smokey Joe's, where Kevin paved the way for us, got me a job as a freshman, a bouncer there. He was a bouncer, then became a bartender. And, it was like that, that was the greatest gift ever. I mean, that whole family, they reached out as soon as they heard about Kevin, and the messages and love from that family were so touching, like those kind of deep relationships that he forged. And we got in a fight there, and, somebody, sucker punched Kevin, and you see your brother go down, and I went on the offensive, and we got in a little bit of trouble.
I remember, yeah. It was a New Year's Eve, right?
It was New Year's Eve, and this is classic Shady Chuck style. We get in this brawl, and he started it. Then he got sucker punched. I came in and with a swift couple shots.
Oh,
and then,
give me with a swift couple shots. Take it easy, Chuck Norris.
Well, no,
was it a roundhouse?
Did
you hit him with the roundhouse, Van Dam?
Yeah, but as the guy went down, Kevin kind of started getting his wits about him and started a little extra salt, to the point where I'm like, dude, all right. And within a week, that freaking guy is in California. And next thing you know, I'm at the Radnor police station meeting with a detective about the incident. And I'm like, what the fuck? Literally, Shady Chuck has relocated to the West Coast.
He graduates from Villanova. He goes to California. And I think
wreckage.
I think this speaks to his ability and his overall, Kevin with tools in his hand. I mean, it kind of had almost like an engineer's mind in a sense where he could figure stuff out. Oh. And he was a guitar tech at the House of Blues, right? What did he do at the House of Blues? So you guys go out there. What I'm saying is the guy, his skills, he was able to just fall ass backwards into opportunities because he had unique abilities.
Well, I think he had an ability that we learned from our dad, right? And that was you show up. And when you move to Los Angeles, guess what? There ain't a lot of people showing up on a consistent basis, right? And then I think he had the knack, he was really smart to learn things quickly, right? He would apply himself. So he started working at the House of Blues, and he was what's called a load in, load out. They start moving, band comes in at midnight, you bring the stuff in, then you bring it out. And that was part of the stage crew. And he went from there all the way through till he was the stage manager, and he worked with some amazing people out there, but that again was he became Glenn Fry's guitar tech, and these are all
how did he get the Glenn Fry job? Did he work with Glenn?
There's so much. Look, we're here to talk about celebrating Kevin's life. Again, I'm going through my own addictions. I have moved to Los Angeles at this point. I follow Shady Chuck, right? And Kevin is gets me a job at the House of Blues, and it's just craziness there, right? There's more scandal with Kevin with he's dating this girl, she's sleeping with this guy, he's sleeping with this girl, and I'm watching this whole thing what the fuck? I'm again this is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean it really is you got the best ticket in town,
best ticket in town.
Yeah.
And I'm just flying under. Here's the thing, Kevin at that point, whatever fear or wherever his addictions came from, it came out in fight. I'm in your face, bigger than life. So he became this we always kid about Kevin, a noise for Kevin is that's he became that guy.
Yeah.
And I would be able to sit back and fly under the radar. I was the nice, polite Sousa. Meanwhile, I'm shoveling cocaine up my nose and drinking, but I was the good one. They called me the good brother after more shit went down there. It was unbelievable.
Well, how much hanging out did you and him do when you were out there? I mean, you lived out there, you work at the same place.
So when I got out there, I stayed with his buddy, still good buddy till he passed, and good friends with our sister-in-law, who we'll get to, Patty, Tad, in Manhattan Beach. He came back here because his drug and alcohol problem had kind of hit a height, and came back to Philadelphia to get himself better right when I moved out there. So he moves out to California. I go, leaves this wreckage of the Radnor police in Pennsylvania that I deal with. I move out to California, follow him, and chase my dreams of acting. I get to California, and he's gone. He leaves literally 5 days before I get there.
And I can put a timestamp. It's the fall of like 97.
That's it. And I get there, and he didn't leave, on a high note. So I get there, and I'm like, I have to interview at the House of Blues. I find it, this is where the scandals everywhere. Everyone's like, and I'm like, wide-eyed, like, what did I get myself into? Like, it was just insanity. But then he came back, and I'll tell you what, that guy, he was sober, and he was started to work a program. And I was like, oh my God, he within like 2 months, he came back. He was a stage manager at the House of Blues, right? Because he had been like, he went and took a sabbatical. And I was like, oh my God, it's that guy from high school again. Like, I saw that glimpse. I was like, holy shit. Like, it's that guy. Like, the dude I idolized was there. And that was like really a great 6 months. And I'll never forget it. We were on the front porch of the House of Blues, and he's like, hey, I want you to know, God bless him. He's like, I had a beer the other night. I'm going to be drinking again. And even I am now in my own addictions, right? And I still remember my heart fell. I just knew this wasn't going to go well. And it did not.
Yeah, no, it did not. But he kept plowing forward. With his career, he goes on tour with the Eagles. Just an amazing opportunity. Again, I can relate in a similar. You kind of keep finding these opportunities on your way down, but eventually, like, that chicken's coming home to roost. I think they say, Mike.
I think look, we were taught to stand up straight, show up on time, and look the part, right? So there was a certain time in all of our lives, and probably a lot of people similar to us, where you get in the door because you look the part and you show up, early on consistently, and you learn maybe how to do that trade, and then your addictions come in, and it's chaos, right? And that was him at the House of Blues, and that was him with the Eagles. And then that was him after that. Like, he got these opportunities and he earned them in terms of showing up, and then blew them up. And look, we're not telling anything that Kevin wouldn't care if we shared right now. And we're not getting, this is a general part of his story, right? Like, and it's, he introduced me to Glenn Fry. I was working security at the foundation room at the House of Blues. And just like that article said, like, he literally, he walks in and says, the only good thing about the House of Blues must be the two Sousa brothers. And I was like, holy shit, this is Glenn Fry. Like, and he was great. And it's like everything. Kevin would be like, hey, I'm touring with Glenn Fry and the Eagles. And I was like, okay, right, whatever. Like, did I believe it or not? And then, 3 months later, is Glenn Fry, and Glenn loved him. You could tell just like spending time with him. Like, I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, like he's really in with Glenn Fry.
He would say, this is Kevin Sousa. He went to Villanova. Now he tunes my guitars. He would say that every night at shows when Kevin would come out and switch guitars. And then, in 2003, this was like a turning point in Kevin's life. And I remember it because I was sober at the time. Or it's 2002. It's the fall of 2002. Kevin comes home for Thanksgiving. I'm home because at this point I'm like homebound. I'm trying to like get my life together. You're living in Atlanta. You're with Lily's mother at the time, and Kevin comes home, and we went down to see the Eagles and the Rams at the Vet. Oh, Kevin was really in a good mood. He'd met this girl. And he showed us. I forget how he showed us a picture of his wife to be Patty. I swear I think it was like a picture. I mean, it was 2002.
I do, yeah. I kind of recall that.
Maybe it was on the phone. They had met kind of over the summer, but now it was getting kind of serious. And there comes Patty Fellers, ultimately to be Kevin's wife, Patty. She is now on the scene, and on the scene forever.
Forever. And look, I think that you don't get sober until you're ready. and I also think that certain people play a role in your life in terms of you realizing that the stakes are high enough that you should get sober, right? Some are sicker than others, but I think at some point when you realize I'm going to lose a Patty who was just a wonderful, wonderful person, wife, and so like smart, you finally start to get your act together, right? And it didn't happen overnight, and it was a journey, but I think Patty is not the reason he's sober, but it was something that helped him, that he needed to get sober for himself, but also he was going to lose that thing, like it was going to go away. And I think that was a motivating factor for it, right? It doesn't matter how you get in the rooms. I always say that I don't care how you get in there, right? At some point, you're going to figure out that it's your fucking fault you're there, and you got to start working on yourself. Like it don't matter how you get in.
My experience with that is very similar. Like I agree. I believe like certain things, whatever, push you towards sobriety. Patty being like a seismic shift for him. But I also can point back to that time. He started to really lighten as an individual. Like a light came on. He was still drinking and he was still using. At this point in time, to my knowledge, there was a lot more marijuana on the scene than harder drugs, but the harder drugs were still certainly around. But I just remember going out to see him and Patty in like 2004, and it was like it was a wonderful scene. We were all drinking a little bit. There was a lot of pot. Like they were obviously in love. I can remember the fall of 2004.
Totally.
And it was just like, wow, these guys, these two have it going on. And I remember Kevin was like, I'm going to propose to her. And I was like, I remember this is such a great,
hey,
he's like, he tells me this like because he has to, because I'm out there and he has a ring. It's not like he was confiding to me. He's like, oh yeah, dude, look at this, or at least I felt like he had to tell me. He was probably being a great big brother. He was like, look at this, I'm going to propose to her. I remember I go, what do you think she's going to say? And he goes, dude, I wouldn't ask her if I didn't know what she was going to say. She's going to say yes. She's going to say yes. I was like, oh,
you
okay.
moron.
Yeah. But I remember I was out there and I had stopped drinking, but then I had started to drink again. And I had an episode where I got really drunk around Mom, and it was like, got back to him.
Oh, good. For a different podcast.
I was living in Colorado.
Oh, Jesus.
And I mean, we can't even, I really don't feel comfortable getting into that, but like
me neither.
but I got hammered and like, was a big mess, and Mom had to deal with it. And of course she told Mike and she told Kevin, and
you won't believe it.
Okay. So Kevin was like a month later, and I'm one of those guys, right, who's like, I'm binging now, but eventually I'm going to get back to where I was before, because there's a reason why I had stopped. But Kevin, I remember, was like, and you put people, if you're like me, if you're an addict, especially with two big brothers like you guys, you put people in uncomfortable positions. Like, I'm out in California, we're having fun, we're drinking, and he's just kind of like, dude, you got to get your shit together. You know what I mean? He's like,
yeah.
Mom calls me and tells me about this. He's like, you got to get it together. But I could tell, and this was what I think would happen to him later on with patients he was seeing as he was getting his degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was telling me this, and he knew in his own heart, like, how can I tell this dude this when I'm still,
yeah.
I know it didn't come, it wasn't as profound as the message once became eventually when he stopped drinking, and I still was drinking.
Yeah.
And
I think that like that time period, all three of us were realizing we had a problem,
mm-hmm.
and on our own, we were trying to figure it out. Right. I mean, it was the beginning of our journey, towards sobriety. Right. Different, like for him, I think you saw at times a lighter Kevin, because he would try and just smoke weed because of Patty. Like he wanted to get it, like, it was under wraps a little bit.
And we're crazy. Alcoholics, addicts are crazy, right? Any which way. How can we get this potion to work? Like, let's play chemist. Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it's like, why can't you just stop? Like the after school special dad, It's not that simple.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not. And he really, when he got sober, I mean, what do you want to talk about? Like, where are you at in the timeline now? Because we could talk about him for 7 hours.
Well, no, I want to touch on one thing, and then we'll get to when he got sober. So I'm going to get to when he got married. So he got married. He got married, and it was like a beautiful thing, right? Like, honestly, Mike, and I have my own issues. It was when I'm in and out. But this time I'm living in Charlotte. We go to the wedding. The wedding was great. And it seems like, man, this guy's got it going on. Totally. He's got this wife. Patty always, not only, I mean, she would tell you emotionally, maybe not always, tied up in a bow tie, but always like had her shit together,
Yeah, clearly.
And I think that like that was a reflection of, here's a guy who he aced the hardest decision of your life, with Patty. And like he had this thing. So for me, I guess I thought everything was going to be fine. But there was still a couple chapters to be written before he would get to this end, this great ending of the story.
Yeah. The wedding was 5 of the best days of my life. I remember that. Like, it was, and maybe because I used to watch like all those sitcoms, and like The Facts of Life would go to London, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, it was all of our people out there in Santa Monica and Pepperdine. It was just amazing. Yeah, I mean, that was a really, really wonderful time.
And you think now, Mike, by the way, just to jump in, you get older, right? You lose people. Like, everybody was healthy and alive and there for that wedding. People have since passed on. Obviously, that's why we're here today.
Yeah.
People have moved on. And that is one of those times you look back at that wedding, just what God had his hands all over that, because
he did. I mean, and look, you could also, there are layers to everything, right? Like, you had your thing, I had my thing, we were all battling, but it came together for a pretty special time. And I also got to notice the makings of that family and the culture in Southern California, South Base, specifically. Now, those pieces changed out a lot because they were lunatics at that point. I remember the one dude asleep underneath the table. Mom's like, who's the guy with the crazy hair?
Like Andy Dick.
I'm like,
it is Andy Dick. No, it wasn't Andy Dick.
No. But that was all, like, to see that family, and you're like, wow, because I was there for 2 years. I moved back home. I had my friends in Hollywood, but this is a different thing. Like, the relationships that Patty and Kevin started to build, you saw it there. And that was something that, to this day, is a theme, or, it's a line all the way through. Like, those special people out there, you got to look, but they're there.
And now, as he would tell us, and I mentioned, he's talking to he decides to become a therapist, right? Or decides, again, I don't have all the details, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's a foggy timeline, but I believe he wanted to. I think he got sober before, and then as soon as he got sober, like, this is in typical Kevin Sousa style, right?
Yeah.
He gets sober, he quits smoking, he then does the Catalina. What's it called?
The Catalina Classic.
Catalina Classic, which is paddleboarding. Look, if you've never done it, I never had, like, you're gonna think whatever, but it is one of the most grueling things you could do. So he trains for this Catalina Classic, and he goes back to school to get advanced degrees to be able to become a certified,
because he'd had experience teaching at Miracosta High School.
Yeah, he taught there
and being an assistant surf coach there, and he was an assistant coach at Overbrook Golf Club or Country Club, like with the swim team. He was some of these kids. Kate Moran's sister,
loved them.
Siobhan was saying how, Kevin made me. This is when she was a very little kid. He saw something in me I didn't see in myself, and he gave me the confidence as a swimmer, right, as a kid, and that enabled me to come out of my shell as a person, because Kevin believed in me in the pool. I mean, it's just there's
a lot
millions,
of the things,
not millions.
A lot of the things you're seeing. Oh, I'm talking over you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
A lot of the things with at Miracosta that we're just seeing posted, and they're heartfelt, like the impact he had, right? I mean, he really did, because he really did care, like he cared. And we're telling all the fun stuff, the fun, crazy antics, but he still made his impact along the way, like without question. Like, he definitely affected people's lives. in a very positive way. But we got to see over these last 12 years, like that developing that person that just, was unbelievable.
Now, I wanted to ask Patty this, but I feel like this is down the line. I don't think anybody's like super ready. I just didn't want to burden her with like, hey, like, let me get some information about this, or I would like you to join us. And I want to also talk with like Sully, somebody out in the South Bay, about Kevin and Kevin's sobriety. But as you can remember, as you recall, you were sober at the time. When did you get the phone call or the official heads up from Kevin or Kevin's camp? Like, hey, he's stopped drinking, like, for real.
I really can't remember exactly. I think because he had been he had been sober for like 3 or 4 months, and then so I think it was kind of like a quieter thing. At this point, I'm back here. I got Lily, right, and so I think it was kind of a quieter thing. There was a couple of incidents that were, if you remember, healthy, like he had partied a lot and had to go to the hospital for some, what do they call it these days? Exhaustion, quote unquote.
Well, he was working and playing almost every night.
Yeah, playing locally there, just. I'm like Dad. I'm like,
oh, for God's sakes, he was playing so much and
so
he just drank. He just, of course, he was exhausted. It's like not exactly, dude.
No, I think there's a little more to it. Yeah, every Thursday and Friday.
So he basically gets himself to that gift of desperation, and as it was told to me, he has a major moment, and then he says to Patty, "I'm going to stop drinking on this day," and then he basically circles a day on the calendar, does his thing, and then that day he stopped and never. It was October of 2009 or 10.
Let's go with 9. I mean,
No, I think it's 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we are with math. The math. We got to another math portion.
No, I think it is. I think it's 2010. I think so.
Yeah. So I think for me, right, like, when you're sober, I was still working an earlier. Well, I'm like 4 years sober, I guess. I've seen him in and out. I've offered my support in any way possible, but you don't start making notes until you're like, oh wow, he's like 60 days. He's really working it, right? And so I think that it was when he got like a year and he was working on his master's degree, and he had to do I forget what it was, it was beautiful.
Come on, man. What's that called? It's like your dissertation?
Yes, thank you. Good Lord.
So let me tell you about the dissertation. So by the time the dissertation comes around, Kevin, although light years beyond me in many respects, was really just about 18 months more than me in sobriety after I finally got it. And I can remember I was in the halfway house that I lived in, that Lily came and visited your daughter, and we went to Chili's. I remember I was in that bed, and Kevin wouldn't talk to me. Now, when I got sober, I called him from rehab, and I was, this is my life is changing. He's like, dude, call me when you get 90 days.
There you go.
Which was perfect. It was just, honestly, it was, at the time I hated it, but again, it was one of those things I needed. So he sent me a draft of the dissertation, and it was dedicated to me.
Yeah.
I've never told anybody that, because honestly, at the time, I felt like it was almost too heavy for me. I couldn't process it. I was like, I know how big of a deal this is to him. The fact that he's dedicated this to me is like more than I can, I'm still like a kid. I probably still
so unexpected, right? Like, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
but he started to operate in that mode, right?
Yes.
Thinking of others, doing things for others. His life totally started to change. I remember he came home for Christmas, and he was like not any of the bizarre ones. He was like 90 days, I think, around 2010. And the one thing I noticed was like he and Patty had shifted the way that they were living. They had become very humble. They were saving money. They were open about saving money. He wasn't playing the big shot anymore, which he would revert back to that role later in sobriety.
Yeah, but they had a plan.
Yeah.
And look, I think no matter what, like Kevin really, like, she worked hard while he was going back to school, right? She supported him through that process. And she had a plan, financially, of how they could get places. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. And he was like, okay, like at that point, like, yeah, but look, he still was a big brother to us. Like, and that's like you said, get 90, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Oh,
I mean, some of the things that have flashed in my brain, and we've talked about, like, of him being that big brother to us while he was sober. Like, nothing ever changed between us, really. Like, except for we got closer and closer and closer. Point being, one of my favorite shows ever on HBO, Entourage.
oh gosh.
What was it? You who asked him that question? Do you remember who?
We were on vacation in Long Island, and and I said, "You guys watching the show Entourage?" Charlie Cerruti was there, Kevin's best friend, and Kevin says, "Dude, I don't need to watch it. I lived it." Now, this is before he was sober. This is like 2007, 2008, and everybody, the record skipped and the ball breaking.
I'm sorry,
commenced. What? I mean, we were like, "Excuse," and you and Charlie more so. I could never really get him in line. Yeah.
This is the bravado of Kevin. Like, that's it. And he believed it. And that's the shit he would tell the people out in the South Bay in Hollywood. And they'd be like, oh, wow. I mean, his nickname was rock and roll out there.
Legit.
We're like, dude, he'd come home. We're like, dude, are you like, no, like you didn't live Entourage. Like, no, like he told you one time, another famous quote, I've been in more fights than days you've been alive. Now play that back, but that's exactly what he said.
The beauty of that is that he even in, I guess there was a point in time where we were all young and maybe
he was sober then, man.
What, the days you were alive? Yes. The days you were alive, yes. But not the Entourage. But he could take a little ribbing, and he could always like he projected this for, at least for me. I was scared of him, right? But he would soften. I know, but he would soften if you stood up to him.
Because we would call him on the carpet,
Yeah.
like, and that was the thing that was so great. We'd be like, dude, that's not true. Like, we were raised with you, and I certainly didn't, turn the corner of Meadowwood and Brownie and see you like, on leaning on the signpost with a cigarette, like looking to kick someone's ass, bro. Like, no, the only fight I can remember you were in, I was with you, and I think you left me there and went to California.
He was like that though. He had the ability to kind of take a beat and laugh at himself.
Yeah.
When he started to get sober and your relationship with him started to change, what were some of the things you started to notice? Because he became vulnerable. And for me, it was the first time I ever saw him vulnerable in his life to us. What did you, and there's an immortality in becoming vulnerable, especially I think if you're somebody like Kevin.
The thing was living so far away, and you're hearing about these things he's doing, right? And it was hard to like really wrap your brain around them when, I'm back here with starting a family, I'm getting married to Tara, and it just like, it took a couple years to really, see that he was really on this path and to see him change, right? Because frankly, I probably still had some, even though I'm sober, 6 years, and I still like that, that guy had fallen for me a little bit, and I didn't know if he was really gonna make this happen. And I don't know the moment, but like, when I went out to visit him, he took me to a bunch of AA meetings, and I met all his crew out there, and I was like, that's the moment, like going to the clubhouse down by his house. And
were you surprised at how dialed in he was?
Yes. And not just that, and this is where I get like, look, this is, we're having fun. This is a tremendous loss. Like, and when I think about him bringing us down there to the clubhouse, he's so proud to introduce us to everybody. Like, so proud. Like, it was like awesome. I mean, that was the stuff. Like, he was just so proud to show his brothers off,
the three of
together.
Us going to that
like,
Alano club.
Alano, yeah, like
Alano. I always get it wrong. He'd be like, dude, it's Alano. I would always get it wrong. But we would go to these meetings, and by the way, some of the women were beautiful, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're Kevin's You're the three sober brothers. I remember one time you guys stayed in bed, and I went by myself one morning.
Not with any of the women.
No, I went to the meeting, but I was in all my glory talking to some of these, beautiful women about my brother and stuff like that. And
Typical.
They were interested in us, And you're right. I'd forgotten about that, Mike. Like, you mentioned your time going with him, but like, going out there and going to meetings with him, and he was like, he would break my balls wide open. I mean, he would always get your shit together, this and that. I disagree with this, and I would hate it, but like, and it was almost to the point where I was shocked with the pride he spoke of us, and I would see it, and it was almost to the point where it was. It was almost too intimate for me. Like, oh my gosh, like this feels. I can't believe this.
Yeah, I agree. It was my program at that point, was good, but not like that. And I was like, damn, okay. And to your question earlier, seeing him through my children's eyes was really, really when I'm like, wow, like the relationship that he developed with Lily, my oldest, and with Callie, like it was just amazing. And I know Kate, always looked at him, my stepson, like, this guy's crazy. But when he was in town, like Kevin would like have a blast with him. Like we were at the Hamptons, he'd like throw them all around the pool. We'd do races, and Kevin would be like, let's go. Like, he knew that like there was some struggle with Cade in our family, just because, like I came in and busted up Cade's world. I get it, right? But like Kevin didn't care. He was going to come in and like have everyone have fun, right?
And he also at that point in time started to develop a greater understanding for relationships like that, right?
Yes.
Through his job and through his work. So he could just activate that by being there and taking certain loving actions, and understanding.
And watching him with those guys was like that was not like it was my my relationship with him at that point just started to really develop. It got to a place where I never thought it could, and yours was just like mine. How close we got, how much I admired him. Watching him, like, it's so funny because kids are shy, right? And he would come home and he'd be like, dude, what time is Lily done school on Thursday? I'm like, dude, she's got like lacrosse or something. Like, he's like, I'm coming to get her. I'm like, bro, you can't just show up at a school and grab a kid. Right?
2021,
there's protocol, man. Like, especially like at this point, you got the long hair and everything. I'm like, we got like, so, and Lily's kind of like, she was probably like 7 or 8 or not. Like, she's like, I'm like, hey, Uncle Kevin's going to pick you up. And she's like, well, I have a friend thing. And I'm like, look, just go, like, that's when their relationship started to develop to the point where then like, on his trips home, I'd be like, hey, Lily, Uncle Kevin's coming to pick you up. She's like, yes, like.
Well, and then what about, just flash forward, we'll go to something really recent. Like she's going to San Diego State and Lily's like, can retreat into her own like world. And so it's kind of like, hey, like Lily's just like, if I text Lily, I have very low expectations on a return text, right? And if I get one, it's great. If I don't expect to get one. But for Kevin, like now she's living in San Diego, going to school there. And Kevin, like, you're like, hey, just kind of take maybe.
Well, can I just you can't discard the fact that she went to San Diego State because Kevin and Patty are out there. And one of the things, because her mom and I aren't together, I would bring her out every year to visit them.
Yeah.
She fell in love with the West Coast, fell in love with California, fell in love with Patty and Kevin. And it was like a major factor in her going to San Diego State. Like, Uncle Kevin's right there, and Patty's right there.
Yeah. And then he comes through because he's like, hey, I'm in San Diego. Come on, I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go to the, Jimmy Miller Foundation surf or whatever. It's like, what?
As a parent, to see your child have a relationship with your brother or an uncle and you're not involved. Like, that's the moment you're like, oh, shit, this is real. Like, him and Patty would go down and pick her up a couple times, just him. He's like, I'm coming down. And he brought her to do charity work. He comes down on a Friday, takes her to dinner, working with veterans, right, with the charity. Yeah. Well, they go on the shopping spree. At that point, he's smart. He's gonna, he's gonna take away all objections that could have come. He's like, let's go dinner, shopping, whatever you want. Like, then they go shopping, and the next morning he picks her up at 7 to go to work with wounded warriors on the beach with this brilliant progressive therapy, surf therapy for veterans, like, and for special needs children. Like, this is when you start seeing the other side of Kevin. He's not that guy like, dude, we're going shopping. This is the authenticity that is him, like the giving part that you're seeing so much of if you're close to him these days. Like, the love he gave back, like this, it all dovetails, from Lily, me seeing it through those eyes, to this, like, to where we are now. Like, just amazing.
It's a fabulous way to kind of wrap it all together from your eyes as a kid, and now through your kid's eyes, and through, the execution he was able to have through the Keep Hermosa. They're going to frack in the South Bay, and I think 2012, and he starts a campaign that is successful in stopping the fracking and keeping big oil, as he would say, out of Hermosa, but also, he starts a movement, and he and Patty becomes a celebrity. And as Patty would tell you, it wasn't one of her favorite parts about being married to him. I mean, they would be at dinner somewhere in Hermosa, and somebody that was a part of the cause on either side, or on either side of this whole thing, would want to sit down with them and talk, to the point where they actually moved for a while. Yeah. They rented their place in Hermosa, and rented a place in San Clemente for a while. And, it just, the more I find out, what are you looking at? The more I find out, the more Mike just fakes nodding off. The more I find out, I knew about this stuff, but I didn't know about this stuff. I mean, go ahead.
You couldn't put it more clearly than that. Like, because also he would tell us about it. He'd also tell us, he's not telling anybody else about what he's doing but us, right? Because he's the big brother, in the way he's telling us. That sometimes it's hard to hear, when he's like, dude, I'm working at, this battered woman's shelter, which he did, Miriam's house. Such great work. We're like, what, but you just don't hear it when someone's telling it to you, like, dude, I got to go to Miriam's and help, we're like, all right, whatever, dude.
Yeah, whatever. He's like, he calls you. He's like, I'm on my way over to Miriam's house. I'm going to do some work with
Miriam.
Yeah.
Like,
but these are women, I think women that have children that are struggling with addiction, struggling through trauma, like something along those lines.
And the Jimmy Miller Foundation, he's on the board there, like the impact, but like, what's this Jimmy Miller thing? Like, and like,
by the way, he's still going to meetings, raising his hand and talking to other alcoholics. And he became so popular and so involved because he had so many clients in the Hermosa area that, as it was told to us by Sully, he couldn't really go to meetings in Hermosa anymore because it was almost like, a little bit of conflict there, because conflict of interest, I guess you would say, because his clients would be there. So he would go to that meeting in Roxbury meeting that everybody talks about.
It's, look, I got like our connection with him over the last, what's the number, 8 to 10 years? I don't know.
I would say 8 years. It's been like, for me, it's just been like on fire, and
the Super Bowls, the sobriety, him being part of our Zoom family, like with meetings, like it's been,
for me, there was a channel that opened more for him to join you in providing feedback on my life, and as to where things were going, and to give me honest, direct counsel, which led to, saving my life, even in sobriety, and opening all kinds of, like, the work he did for us, right? So why wouldn't, of course, he be doing that for everyone else? If he impacted us like that, the care he had for others, it's very clear now more than ever that as to what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, we, with Dad dying, Alzheimer's, going into the home, like, to work through that as brothers on this level that, look, it's, to me, it transcends like the normal, like, never an argument, like everyone, like, we just communicated. We had a plan. Mom has a stroke, 7 months ago. He comes home, we decide as a team that you've got your stuff at work that's kicking ass. Stay there. We'll need you back here in a month when I'm having my surgeries for my neck, which I had. Like, and you're like, okay, I'll do it. I don't have to be the hero right now. These guys are there. I go, you come. Like the decisions that we made as adults in sobriety, to me, it was just unbelievable. And we always noted it. We never took it for granted.
Well, and the fact that we were able, like, I don't make decisions like that on my own. So I needed you guys and the program to come to those decisions. And I think probably the same could be said for you guys, right? Like, it was greater than us, like our ability to work
totally
as a cohesive unit. Because there was a couple times, I remember one time we were out in California, and it was when stuff was getting really tough on you with Dad and Mom, because Dad is now, he's spiraling. And I remember we were outside Coffee Man, or is that what it's called? Burrito
I
Man?
remember exactly where we were. I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I think it's Coffee Bro or something. Remember we went there with Kevin all the time, and you get the burritos?
What, are you going to get a free cup of coffee when you go next time? Like, is he fucking listening?
Like, Java Man.
That's it, okay. Yeah. Java Man.
So we're outside Java Man, and he is like kind of telling you how it's going to be, and you're just like, You're like, no. I was like, and it was kind of like, those were very helpful conversations.
Well, he received it.
Yes.
And our relationship had gotten to the point where I could say, look, dude, it's not going to work. Like, here's where we are. And he would hear it. And that's somebody who had transformed who they were through a lot of work, and I just, like, he was just like this kind, loving, amazing guy. That this is what sobriety does. Working a program, like, you just give back. You're available. And some of the stuff that all the stuff that's out there right now, the people's lives he touched, the impact Hermosa Beach, like, yeah, we knew it, but we didn't know it. And I'm like, God, man, like, I almost feel like I didn't know him to this level. But I'm like, it's just amazing. And somebody said the other day, which is a typical thing, boy, you almost wish they were alive to see all this stuff so they could know how great they were. I'm like,
he's good.
You got that story.
I say this is no. So Kevin and I had gotten to having like deeper conversations, and I was, when Kevin and I would talk, and Mike, I discussed this with you the other day, like, it wasn't like, there wasn't so much of an exchange as there was, like, he wasn't coming to me for advice. We started as we got older, and he started to kind of be curious about me and my career. There was definitely more conversations, but it was a lot of times me seeking his advice and just asking him questions, because I really did realize that I got to tap into this route. This is an incredible resource here.
Yeah.
And I remember I was asking him, because, I got all my insecurities and stuff, and I was talking about women, and I was like, I was like, I know how in love you and Patty are, and you've been married for so long, and we were out in Terranea. I'm like, it's just so obvious you guys are thriving. I said, but along a 20-year relationship or 18 years, you've never strayed or thought about, like, straying? Like, isn't marriage hard? He's like, dude, I don't need anybody else to tell me that I'm the man. I know I'm the man. He's like, guys have affairs because they're insecure. And he kind of like went on this rant, which was one part Kevin and another part totally right. And it was just kind of like, dude, I don't need that bullshit. I have a wife. I'm in love with her. I've worked on myself enough to, I'm not perfect, but I know what this whole thing is about. And seeking the right things.
Because the version you tell is big brother to a little brother, right? He would have that same conversation with somebody else, but it would be, delivered in a, like, look, I don't need, like, this program, and I've fulfilled myself, and, I'm comfortable in my own skin. So I don't, that temptation isn't even there for me. And I love my wife so much, but the way he tells it to you and me, it's the best.
Well, and dude, an hour or 25 minutes later, he told me I was at CVS. I was like, you knew I had a bad back and stuff. And dude, get the Coke Zero. And I got 12-pack. And after I leaned down to get it with my bad back, he's like, dude, you buy 2, get 1 free. Grab 3. So I go to grab all 3 of them, and I pop my back as he's watching me. And for the rest of the weekend, I literally couldn't walk. It was the worst back trouble I ever had in my entire life. So this guy does the Keep Hermosa. He is a therapist, a very successful therapist, to the point, by the way, and I want to celebrate this, because the similar thing and I'll let you out of here in a little bit, Mike.
I'm good.
A similar thing
going.
happened with you and your sobriety. You have Lily with Kim. You and Kim are at odds, right, around your addiction. You get sober. Kim now is one of your best friends. You are the godfather to her and Evans, one of their children. I would say you're the rock in that entire family tree, right, that extends to Kim and Evan. It's amazing what sobriety did to that relationship. With him and Patty, I'd say the same thing. And I would say also there was a point in time where Patty was doing the heavy lifting financially, right? I mean, and then there became a point where Patty was stuck in this job that was not her favorite, as she would tell you. And he convinced her to believe in herself that, one, she could walk away from the job and be okay as a person, and two, he's got it under control. And that's exactly what happened. And his business flourished, and she flourished, and their relationship flourished. That stuff is not, it's just not an accident. You know what I mean? That's a guy who is working like within the sunlight of the spirit.
And dude, the their relationship, it just, we would watch them work together it was special, like they were committed to each other, still are, it was special. I mean, I can't say we were so fortunate to spend so much time with them at Terranea, at a resort they got for us. They took us to the Chili Peppers concert last year, for my birthday.
And Kevin's like, hey, come on out. Like, for me, luckily I just gotten out of a bad relationship, so I was back on the roster.
Which one?
So I was back on the roster, but he was like, hey, come on out here. This is going to be the best. And it was, I mean, I think about a year ago, around now, was when he called me and was like, hey, you got to come out for this. It's going to be all. And it was incredible. And by the way, all this is going on the year before that. He has us out there, and he shows us, he talked to us about it, but we actually went to the space, right? Hermosa Music Company, which he and Patty and a few others were behind. He ended up owning it. He worked out of there, wrote music out of there. It became a creative space for people in the Hermosa. And he didn't know this at the time, but to come together, streaming performances during COVID. We listened to, and I'll say this, the song A Perfect Wave, when I was living in a halfway house, and it was, Kevin, I would listen to it all the time. It really spoke to me then. This is over 10 years ago. And he had so I thought that was my favorite piece of music for him. And then he sits us down, you, Lily, I don't know if Patty came with us because she'd probably heard it 1,000 times.
No, it was me, you, Lily,
Shaggy, yeah. We're in the and who else? That was it, right? I think maybe
that was it.
Yeah, and we listened to his whole album, which still, by the way, folks, there's still more music coming.
And I mean, we're always going to be honest here. We were kind of having an aside on the way down there. What do we do if this sucks? We knew it wouldn't, kind of. But
well, and you guys were wheeling me down in a chair because he just my back was fucked up from the beginning.
We're all right, dude, if we're 2 in and we're bored, can we go hey man, all right, this is we got how do you handle that, right? We're God, please be good. This could be this has potential to be disastrous. It's bad music. There's 3 of us there, and we just sat there. I was in awe. Yeah. The music touched. I mean, I had tears in my eyes a couple times.
Yes.
It
was
inspired.
Amazing. The album is inspired. And it's there's a divine situation going on there, and he left us that music, and a lot of it still has yet to be released. I mean, this is a total irony, but we're sitting here talking about Kevin, and that's the music that leads into this podcast, because Kevin was a big part of, if you've listened to this and you feel like this has ever helped you at all, you're just one of the many thousands of people that he's touched through moving somebody in sobriety. I was like, should I do this? He's like, do it, dude. Who cares? He's like, just you stay true to yourself and the tenets and the, and recovery, and it'll go the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's a huge, this has been great talking about the memories. Mm-hmm. I mean,
was this me? Do you mean I have to go somewhere?
Me?
Yeah. This has been great. Are we done?
Oh, I'm good. No.
I got a couple more questions for you.
You're gonna have to cut this thing up. I'm available for whatever.
Okay. How was
I'm in no rush, honestly.
All right. Well, I got shit to do.
Really? Like
How
what?
was 130?
Yeah.
How was he as a football player?
He was. I mean, he was fast. Like you said, he wasn't the fastest, but like he was always where he should be.
He was
like,
a starting cornerback.
Yeah.
At Archbishop Carroll, Philadelphia Catholic League, which I think speaks volumes to his just know-how as a player.
Yeah, I mean, he was really good. As a matter of fact, I think like he got a late start because mom was always protecting us, wouldn't let us play football. He didn't play until like 7th grade, I think, so a little late. And then going to high school, he was still developing and learning. We also played where you only were allowed to play on one side of the ball. Like I think he could have done a lot more. I mean, who doesn't? But he was good. I mean, he maybe blew a play here and there, right? Like
what about Kevin is they're playing. Carroll's playing Newman at this point in time.
Newman,
you're a sophomore, right?
Yes.
When Kevin's a senior. So you're there.
I'm there, and yeah. Oh man,
it's in South Philly. The place is like a dust bowl.
Dust bowl.
Kevin and his team, they're trying to salt away a victory, right? And Newman has the ball. What happens? And Carroll's up by a score. Let's say.
Yeah, they go deep. Like there's literally 30 seconds left, or maybe a minute, whatever. And Kevin lost his footing, stumbled, he got beat, and they lost the game. And this speaks to it was tough. I mean, I remember he was beat up. He was beat up, but he kept things in perspective somehow. That would have destroyed me, I think. And of course, then I have a smart aleck comment.
A couple days later.
Yeah, maybe a week later, he was literally stretching his neck around, and we're at dinner, and he's like, my neck is really bothering me. And of course I say, yeah, probably from watching the ball fly over you from the Newman game, right? And look, I said things lots of times, half expecting to get attacked, right? But he just laughed it off. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect that, he really didn't take himself too seriously the whole time, And
that's I 100% agree. And it was nice to finally discover that if you were able to, I mean, you had that number the whole time. I just recently you could mess with him a little bit. He was very, very good at laughing at himself, as seriously
so good
as he took himself. What did you think about? Do you remember the band he was in? Was that Final Cut with Clark Burke when they were?
No. So I don't think there was a name for that.
It was his 16th birthday for Clark. I remember we.
Yeah, it was it was Joe Watts,
Tower Road.
Tower Road. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tower Road. They played at Conestoga Swim Club, Clarksburg. Those were magic days. So fun. Mike Riley, who's a pilot now, would cut it was just great, man. There were a bunch of beats. Joe Utz played drums until thank God Luke Orlando came in, who actually could handle the sticks. Oh my God, that was the first band, Tower Road. It was awesome.
And that also opened up Kevin's social life, because he now, I mean, I got a message from Bart Smith's brother, Rich, and Rich was like, dude, your brother was like Ferris Bueller, basically. He literally was he was, and also, but you throw in, he was a football player, he was a musician.
Yeah.
Ladies loved him. He was kind of an outlaw. And there was
totally.
There was a legend around Kevin, even in high school.
Yes.
And I was telling this to Murph. I was like, when you talk about Kevin being a football player, all I was a football player, and I liked girls, and I was a drunk, in high school. Really, I mean, that was my identity, right? As I chose to forge it. Kevin was not one thing. I mean, he was a football player when he was at practice. He was, a musician when he was at, practice playing in the band. I mean, he had so many different places he went to discover that fulfillment, I guess.
Yeah. And you just, look, I don't know what it was, man. You were not going to put him in a box, and you were not going to tell him how to live his life. And that can be dangerous. If he had stayed down the drugs and alcohol path, that, his life would have ended. But he gets sober, and he has that same moxie, right? And he's going to live his life. Think about it. this guy came from a conservative family on the East Coast, right? That with a very strict father, moves to California, grows his hair long, knows that his dad is probably like rolling his eyes at him, but he's like, I don't care. And, look at the life he lived. Like, he did it how he wanted to, but he did it ultimately, with principles and integrity. Like, it doesn't matter if you have long hair and a beard and live on the beach. Like, you freaking work hard and you treat people well and you give back to the community. Like, that's what life is all about, right? Like, you don't have to be a certain way in a box. When the people on the East Coast, conservative, they're not living a life as good as you are. I mean, as service oriented, right? As community driven. They're not the husbands that you are, right? The uncle that you are. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, this dude did it on his own terms and ultimately did it the right way and made a huge impact on so many people.
Well, and you just were talking about it, and I was thinking about this when you were talking. It's almost as though his soul caught up with who the person he wanted to be. Like, ultimately, he became like, you look at him, you say like the dude, like he
totally
became that person, like walking around Hermosa Beach with Kevin. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it really is crazy. And you got to realize, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's one of the coolest places you can live on the planet. And he walks around there like he's the mayor. I've gotten messages from people who I know through whether this podcast or through sports. And people are like, oh my gosh, I knew your brother. I didn't know he was your brother. Like
yeah,
that is holy shit. That was Kevin. I'm like, yeah,
totally.
So many people knew who he was. I mean, people will forever know who he is. Mike,
yeah.
You're in a lifeboat. Okay. It's Angela and Lee Fitzgerald, and the lifeboat starts to take on water.
Uh-huh.
Who do you've got to let one person out. Who is it?
Like out, like to die?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I got like
those are Kevin's ex-girlfriends.
Lee F is sober, and works a great program. I don't know Angela anymore. I got to go with Lee.
We're going with Lee. Yeah. It's so cool because so many of, obviously we've sung Patty's praises, right? And it's like, it's the real deal. She's in our lives right now. She'll be in our lives forever. But there were other women who came before her, and they weren't like necessarily sideshows. Kevin was, as much as he liked to stay independent and like a soloist, right? As far as our family was concerned, he always came back home. We got to know so many of these people, right, wrong, or indifferent. Our home was like a central point for Kevin's life. And I think sometimes to his detriment, as he would tell you, mom and dad got to know his friends too well.
I had a moment where I after we came back from seeing him when he passed and before he passed, I brought mom home, right? And God bless her, it's been tough, and that's her son, and I can't imagine. But she's hanging in. She's been real strong. I'm proud of her. I get her inside, and as I was leaving, I looked through we have a big picture window, and I saw us there. Like laughing because we had an unbelievable Easter for my mom's 80th birthday. Like, Kevin and mom were in a great spot. It was like, I mean, what does Scott Van Pelt say? Sublime. Like, it was just, it was unbelievable. And it's almost like this was coming because it was just perfect. And I looked in the window and saw it, and I was like gutted, but like grateful.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, we're just so blessed that we had all these phenomenal moments with them. I'll never forget like that coming back and looking and like it was out of a stupid TV show, though. I saw us there and everybody was laughing.
Yeah.
Like that that'll be there forever.
Well, I mean, and like we were talking about, there were several visits, 4 or 5 over the last like 6-7 months. We're talking about people who live in 3 different states, You know, really. I mean, we were home for the Phillies World Series. We were there for the Chili Peppers. He came home because mom's sick. You know, we all come home in April for Mother's Day. I mean, it was nonstop, dude. The Christmas before that.
And let me say this. He did a lot of the travel back here, him and Patty, but he also quarterbacked a lot. Like
a lot.
Super Bowl. You guys coming?
Yeah.
What days? We're like, oh shit. Like, yeah. So we last 5 Super Bowls, I think, we're there watching the game with him, Patty, Gavin, whoever, whatever the Rough Riders come over, having a blast. We're there for 4 days.
It depends on Gavin's relationship status. If he's
oh my God.
Right.
But yeah, I guess we'll leave that go. That's not our story to tell. Gavin.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I had. Mike, anything else you wanted to bring up?
You know, there's
we can certainly do this again. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's just so much. I'm all the stuff, the feelings I'm feeling. I'm like, I said this to Patty the other day, and I think I didn't know that I loved him this much. I just I can look and go, okay, I can conceptualize 52 years and the last year he had, to see where he was spiritually, to see how he lived, to see where he was with mom, the last 8 to 10 years of our relationships, everything before that, maybe this was how it was supposed to end. Maybe 52 years of that full life, of the lives he impacted, the service work he did. Maybe this is how it's supposed to end. I still am not at peace with it yet. It hurts a lot still. Our text strain, the three of us, back and forth, I would just send a picture of you that I cropped in a hairdo on, that was so stupid. And he just he was our audience a lot, because out, in other places, he's the guy, busting chops and all, but with us, he was the audience a lot, and he freaking loved it, man. He laughed so hard, and we're all going to miss different things, but I'm going to miss where, that was a pretty great dynamic, it was, that stands out. I was talking to our uncle and
Marty,
and, this one hit me when he's, Uncle Marty, Kevin would always say, I talked to Uncle Lou. I talked to Uncle
I know,
Marty.
right? Yeah.
Then we'd be like, dude, is he really calling these guys? I don't believe it. There's so much going on. And you come to find, he's doing that. And Uncle Marty said,
and by the way, he's calling these guys while they're going through stuff.
Yeah.
Their own personal battles or whatever, right? Yeah.
And he calls Uncle Marty and says, and I talked to Uncle Marty, and Uncle Marty says, I'm reading all this stuff, and I had no idea that he was doing so many wonderful things for the community, and he helped so many people. And he paused and he said, and I just can't believe that he's doing all this stuff with his thriving practice. He's battling cancer off and on, and he still had time to call me a couple times a week. That sums it up, man. And if I can hold on to anything about Kevin and his story, it's I thought I was doing things really well, right? Man, I can make those phone calls. When do I not feel like doing that? When can I shine my light on other people? When can I reach, the potential that God has put in front of me?
I never asked him this, but we talk about it. I wonder if that was part of his getting out of self. I mean, he was doing nonstop work with other people that were in need of it. Not just people in the recovery community, nonstop work with people who were in need of it. One thing that Sully told us, it's worth mentioning, Sully is affiliated with the NHL, the National Hockey League, and they needed somebody to talk to players. Players basically needed therapy, like everybody does, like I do. And Kevin was the guy that they were using. The NHL was using Kevin Sousa to talk to players to talk therapy. And by the way, and that kind of is the opposite of what you're saying, and this is where it gets frustrating for me and you and everybody else. That was just the beginning of him doing that. It just started. Who knows?
Dude, and so, who knows?
Because he told me, he was like, dude, I don't know who they are. I'm not scared of them. I swear to God. He was like, they respond to him because he did, Kevin didn't give a shit who you were. You know?
No, dude, nobody impressed him. Like,
Yeah.
that was the thing. Like, and then, you know, his practice was growing, right? And
This is
he had
huge.
like some like billionaires and famous people. I was always like, dude, just give me a
He would never
nugget.
tell us, dude.
Like, come on. Like, who's,
like he's wrong.
yeah, like he would never tell us.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what about? He's like, nah, dude, you know I can't tell you, idiot. Like, like, come on, man. Like, just one.
Yeah, and he was the best kind of therapist too, because he was or maybe the worst kind, depending on who you ask, because he was always busy. He was sought after to the point and in demand that he was available all the time for his clients because of, I think, the relationship that they had, whether it was an agreement or whatever, that, okay, Kevin
Totally.
would charge enough, or he was in that rare air where, okay, I got to be available all the time, you know? And so
He can't afford me.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, no, he said that to me once.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, dude, you couldn't afford me. I
Yeah,
was like,
that's what he would say to us.
But he said that to me
right?
in like 2010 when he was like in grad school.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Which was true,
it was
by
the
the way.
greatest. We're like, oh, really? Huh? Okay. And then, I don't know, like, it was just, the journey's been unbelievable with him. Like, it's just been amazing. I don't even know. There's so many more things that
Even the recent years, you know, something like, and it's almost like surreal. Like, I put that on my Instagram feed when he was the guy Carter Evans on, you know, the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell did a feature on surf therapy, and who would be the main character of the focal point of the story was Kevin. I mean, obviously, aside from the folks who needed the recovery, but Kevin is just larger than life on this news. And I said at the time, he's eclipsed my television news career in 6 seconds. You know, he was like literally, or a minute and a half segment. He just steals the show. And he says he says, you know, when these guys are out here, and he's talking about the veterans who are getting the surf therapy, or the people who need the surf therapy for Jimmy Miller. Is it the Jimmy Miller Foundation?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. For the Jimmy Miller Foundation. He said, when they're out there on the wave, all they have is right here, right now. And it's like, that is who he was. And, you know, those words live on forever within us. And I'm happy. I am happy for the illustration through news articles. You know, there's just an unbelievable article in him and the Easy Rider. You know, the Hermosa, I guess, you know, the tabloid out there, right?
Tabloid?
The tabloid, yeah. Anything else, Mike? We could go forever. I can't keep it for too much longer.
Yeah, you know, no, it's
I think people
stuff
are
out there. What?
I think people are going to enjoy this.
What
about Todd Glass?
You know, that's Todd. Their relationship was so special. There's just so much, like, you know, like, but Todd is like, you know, he's showing, like, sending texts like, I can't believe that we lived our lives as two adult males with it. Like, it would be like Todd, like when Todd's mom was dying, you know, he would help him out with things. And Todd will be the first to tell you, like, I couldn't have gotten through without Kevin.
Yeah.
Todd had a friend of his who his son was struggling, and the friend's son went to he referred him to Kevin, and Kevin saw him. And this is the kind of therapist Kevin was. So like a year ago, Kevin says to this guy who's a young adult now, look, you don't need to come see me anymore. Like, and this is as told by Todd, like, you can fly now. Like, you've got it. Like, you've got this. And, you know, when this young adult heard about Kevin's death, he was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe he said that to me just recently, or, you know, within the last year. Like, and I feel like I am flying, but also, like, I always thought I would have him in my back pocket somewhere, you know? But at the end of the day, he doesn't need Kevin in his back pocket, because Kevin worked with him to help him get to this spot, you know? Like, but that's the shit, man. Like, therapy, some of them would just keep these people on to milk them. Kevin's like, you're good. Like, I don't want you to come to me for 10 years. Come to me for 3 years. Like, let's get you better.
Yeah.
Let's get things figured out and get out of here. Like, that's the kind of guy that he was. He probably also thought he could open up a spot and then charge an extra $25 an hour. Maybe. I don't know how that works, but but that was the guy. What's going on? Where's our internet? You there?
No, I'm here. All right. I want to do one thing before you leave, because this was Kevin's favorite thing that I ever did. Kevin was so sweet to us and about our successes and to your success. I can remember multiple times, or at least I remember one time we went up to your office. We saw everybody you worked with.
Yeah.
There were one time I was calling a game this last year, and he was on a yacht with the binders, right? And he sends me a video of him watching the game I'm doing on ESPN. But this was the thing he was most proud of. I'm gonna play this, Mike.
Oh God.
It turns out we're going to actually get the extra hour. We're going to be able to.
You can't hear it?
No.
Forget it then. Hold on. I think you people can hear it. Just listen, all right? This is me impersonating my mom, and Kevin loved it.
Post-stroke.
This is after a stroke.
It turns out we're going to actually get the extra hour. We're going to be able to have Kenny and Kristen join us at Chris and Becky's with the Friars. So we'll just have to extend the amount of time we're Chris and Becky's. And the Friars will take a van.
Now, okay, Mike, I don't think you could hear that very well, but people at home could, or
Okay.
driving or listening. That was one. Now, Kevin put together this trip for us to come home and honor Mom, and have this beautiful reception. And Mom called me and had looked and noticed that wedding receptions are longer than 4 or 5 hours, and that we needed to get, if we were going to have a birthday, we're longer than 3 hours. So if we were going to have a party for her, it needed to be more than 3 or 4 hours. Yeah.
More than 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the shit, dude. Like he loved all that stuff.
He did.
Like,
Yeah.
It was like, and he was, dude.
He loved the
honestly,
laugh.
He loved the laugh. Every picture we have, the dude is smiling. Some of them are good smiles. Some of them are bitter beer face smile.
Yeah.
Even when he wasn't drinking, like he just, because he didn't give a shit how he looked in pictures. Me and you were like, we're standing up straight, like tilting our head the right way, so vain. He's like,
Yeah, yeah.
he could give a shit.
Yeah, that's
dude.
comfort in
Like,
your own skin.
Yeah, his confidence was oozing, man. Like
Mike, Gwen S. and Jenna B. are in a boat. It starts to take on water. You're in the boat. You have to get rid of one of them. These are 2 other Kevin's ex-girlfriends.
Okay, great question. Look, that changed recently because Gwen has reached out and sent some beautiful heartfelt notes. So I got to go with Gwen.
Oh,
I know, dude. And Gwen's,
they're all
I got to
great
go
people.
with Gwen.
Yeah.
Jenna B, though, man.
Oh, she was
a little
great.
Mouse.
Gwen was awesome.
What are
Yeah,
you
and the reason I bring them up, it's funny, but Kevin was such a prolific figure in my life growing up. These women were like celebrities. It was really larger than life. All right, anything else?
Nah, man.
This was felt very good. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Oh, dude, I love it. It was really good for me, And look, it's fun. Like all the stuff people have posted, like Patty's post was like unbelievable. Yours was perfect, man. And it's like, I can't. I just like I think you spoke perfectly for both of us, And I also, part of me is kind of waiting to see, like, there's got to be a scandal out there somewhere. Like it can't all be this good. Like something's got to break. Like I don't know, man. Like there's got to be.
We
something out
both
there.
said that. I was like, Jesus.
What?
Yeah. We both said that. We're like, this is unbelievable.
Yes, there's got to be something out, like somebody out there, like
This is not an encouragement. This is not a come forward situation.
Yeah,
right?
please. No, but obviously,
It's like on the news when we do a story, a cold case, and the sheriff says somebody out there knows something. Like we don't want that.
Basement.
Yeah.
Nah, man. Like the real deal, dude. Like, I'm so honored to have like been through this whole thing with him, and I definitely felt close to him at times now. And dude, I hope I keep this forever. But I'm like, man, like on the way in today, made a couple phone calls like 7:30 this morning. Like I wouldn't normally do that. Like I just want to keep reaching out for me. For he would always exhaust us when we were there. Like, dude, we're going to Guitar Mike's. We're like, dude, we just ate. Like, Guitar Mike's. Then we're gonna ride motorbikes to Gavin's, and then I'm like, dude.
What about when you were out there after your surgery and Nate had like a record debut party, and he's like, "You're coming, right?"
Like, dude, I just had 2 discs replaced 2.5 days ago. He's like, you can walk, just come for 1 second. I gotta see you gotta see Music Nate.
You went.
Everyone had that name, Music Nate, and I went. It was great. Like, yeah, Yeah, dude, he was just, it's magic, man.
He brought so many people together. Like I was
Oh.
saying the other night, we would go out to see him, and we'd be going to dinner with Patty, and he'd be like, "Yeah, Frida's coming too." We're like, "Who?"
Oh, yeah, we're like,
Yeah, you never met
and
her.
you
but
and I,
yeah, we're like,
honestly,
that
we'd
kind
be
of
like,
messes
dude,
up the vibe, dude.
we would have our aside, like definitely, like this is gonna, like the vibe is gonna suck now, and we'd be there, and this person was there, and they were like the most loving, kind, wonderful,
Yeah.
like person. We're like, oh God, that was so great.
Yeah.
Like,
and now I get
like-
to follow them on Instagram, and whenever they post something, I think of my brother. It's
yeah,
like,
dude, like
yeah.
that's the stuff, man. Like we still have that mentality time. Like it's like what would, like, how Kevin lived, what would he do? Like, God, he was just so out there, man. And the more I'm learning, the better I can be as a man, as a father, as a person in sobriety, as a worker, like, which is beautiful. I didn't realize that I always know I need to work on myself, but I got a ways to go to reach up to where he was, and I cannot believe I'm saying that, right? like, come on, dude. Like,
I
it's the
still
truth.
am thinking about getting a tattoo.
Oh yeah.
What about
So's Lily.
What about what I told you when I was like, what should I do about the tattoo? Should I get like a big one on my back? We were in Hermosa. What did you say? Remember?
Yeah. What did I know? What did I say?
I go, maybe I should get like a big one on my back, like to honor him. And Lily was like, yeah, maybe we should do that. Like, here are the two of us, right? Brain surgeons are putting together this plan. And you're like, I think you guys need to just take a beat. You're like, this is like when I go on vacation and I get some fucked up hat and I come home and I'm thinking, wow, that looked good on vacation. You're like,
oh boy, where am I? I can't wait to wear this sombrero to work on Tuesday. Like, guys, let's not get out of here with a fucking sleeve tattoo of Kevin's face. Like, let's just.
We were ready.
God.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but Lily's still in. So I mean, we got to figure it out. I want something. I just want,
without being overt, something that he would like,
Yeah, dude, I do remember at one point he was saying, I don't know if he was screwing with us or not. He was telling me, like, he's like, dude, I've thought about getting a sleeve of tattoos. And I remember thinking, like, dude, don't do that. Like,
it's so cool that he didn't.
Yes,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
everyone out there, like, got all this shit. Like, he didn't need it. Like,
No.
and I think he was just messing with me, but I don't know. Like, I wonder sometimes, like, was he really going to get a sleeve? That would have been awful.
I know I'm his little brother, but I think a lot of people would agree. Like, that guy didn't need to get any cooler. Like, he was is, unadulterated. It was perfect.
No, Shady Chuck was cool like the Fonz. That's awful.
All right, we've been an hour and a half.
You
So
said
that's
it all.
Mike, I love you. This
I
felt
love
very
you too,
good.
buddy. Yeah, dude, this,
Do you think we said anything that'll get us in trouble?
No, I don't know.
I don't think so.
But do we want to tell people what we've decided about, like, because, our dynamic of, like, having three brothers has been so amazing. Like,
Yeah, tell me, you and Todd Glass came up with this, right?
yeah, well, we want to audition people to play the role of Kevin. It won't be the same, but, and I'm hoping, like, I think we can get Stamos maybe, like, to read for it a little bit. Todd was like, I can play younger. I'm like, nah. But then Todd thought we should just, like, have adopt a kid like the Brady's did, like, have that Oliver come in, like, yeah,
Or like
something
Leo
to fill-
DiCaprio.
Exactly, just something to feel like ratings are dropping, Kevin's dead, like, we got to do something. But you can't fill those shoes. It's
Like
gotta be
when Valerie's family became like Hogan's family.
yeah,
Right, when they added Sandy
exactly.
Duncan. Sandy Duncan was gone. Yeah, no, Valerie Harper was gone, and they added Sandy Duncan.
But what happened though? All those shows
Bomb.
tried that.
No.
They jumped the shark.
Yeah.
Like, they were never the same. And I don't think we'll
You're going to
we'll
decide
still-
against recasting our brother?
I don't know about that yet. Wait, let's just see who auditions. Let's just see who comes in first. But you can't fill those shoes, man. I'm gonna miss them. I miss them every day. But man, were we fucking blessed to have him as a big brother.
Well, it's unbelievable. And Patty said he left us the love letter in his music. So I'm going to link his music. I'll link, one of the articles about him in here and maybe some clips so people can.
Dude,
take
I'm sorry, by
get to
the
know who
way,
he is.
the song that you start the show out with.
Yeah.
Which
It's not
one
been
is it?
released yet, so sorry.
All right.
All right, man. Love you, Mike. Thanks so much for listening to the Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Sousa. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
But first, Big Brother. Hi, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the podcast with Pete.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.